And on that note, hello and welcome to podcast number 69, dude. Let's party on, be excellent to each other. Those are the mantras of today's podcast. Hello, a croeso I podcast Shreve Chwech now. My name is Gareth S. Preston Evans, and I'm joined by Mr. Henry Theodore Cooper. How's it going, dude?
Theodore?
Yeah, man, it's the middle names of Bill and Ted, man.
Yeah.
Come on, get the references, man.
Well, it's because I was thinking, you don't know what my middle names are. You're not going to...
Yeah, what is your middle name, Mr. Henry Cooper? What is your middle name?
See, you say middle name, and this is something I thought all through my life.
Got more than
I
one.
have two.
Of course you do.
Everyone in my family has two.
Of course you do. You're a posh southerner. Why wouldn't you have two middle names?
Well, you say that. People who are posher than me, like my girlfriend, she's only got one. Everyone I went to school with only had one. So like when you start going through school, I was what are your middle names? They're like, what do you mean? I've only got one.
What
I'm the weirdo. Names? Even though all of my immediate family have two. So they're quite morbid as well. So Henry Alistair, which would have been my uncle, my mum's brother, but he died when he was 13. So obviously long before I was around. And Job, spelt J-O-B, like Job, as in the chap in the Bible.
Yeah.
But that's because that was my granny's maiden name, who was also dead before I was born. So there's some death people surrounds me.
Middle name. After all these weeks of inventing middle names, who'd have known you already had two? You didn't need one. You didn't need. You're definitely going to
forget them for. Yeah, that's the thing. You're definitely going to forget them for next week. I can predict it now. You're going to try and remember what they were.
Job.
You're going to
I'm going to remember Job.
Alexander. Easy, yeah. Job's quite a good one.
H-A-J-C. Hajk.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not hard to remember. But I don't need a middle name, Henry. I can make them up on the spot.
Exactly.
I don't need a middle name.
Better than my depressing ones.
So what have you been up to this week, Henry? What have you been doing? What have you been playing? Any games? Any TV shows or anything like that? I want to know.
What have I been doing? I replayed Spider-Man. I sort of started replaying it a while ago, but didn't get very far. And I finished that, and I completely mainlined the story. I've platinumed it before. I've done everything. So I did a New Game Plus. And my God, I didn't mind the Mary Jane and Miles Morales stuff in the first one, but playing it the second time, I was like, just get fucking back to Spidey, man. Let me get to swinging. I can't be bothered with these forced stealth sections. And as I've made clear before, I love stealth games, but when it's bad, it does my head in. I hated it. So I just tried to smash through those as quickly as possible. Got back to Spidey. Had a great time. Still a great story. Especially the ending, and it's all very emotional, this, that. And I still think it's offensive that Yuri Lowenthal, who plays Spider-Man, didn't get nominated for a Game of the Year award for voice acting. He was robbed in 2018.
Well, already offended. We're 4 minutes in, and we're already offended. Come on.
We're making up for a potentially weaker triggered fanboy this week, so I will take the role. Yuri Lowenthal didn't get Game of the Year for voice acting. I can't remember who did in 2018 anyway. I think it was the God of War man, Christopher Judge.
Yeah, that would make sense. So this week I have been playing a little game on my Switch called Yes, Your Grace. There's not really much to talk about at the moment. I'm just... it's just a little indie game. Picked up for 15 quid. No More Robots is the publisher. Mike Rose is the owner of No More Robots. If those of you who recognize that name, he was the guy who rallied against the likes of G2A, saying that you should pirate the games instead of buying them on G2A. So I've been following him on Twitter, and he's always promoting the games upcoming. Yes, Your Grace is like a kingdom management sim, let's say. 2D pixel art type of thing, where you just get to make decisions. It's a bit like, I imagine, you've got remember Game of Thrones, where Bran the Broken is like leading Winterfell, and he's got all these people coming and asking him for problems. My sheep got killed by a wolf, can you spare 2 gold? You've got all that kind of, loads of people coming and telling you that, the husband's run away and have got problems and this and that. But you've got
That's not my problem, I'm a king.
Yeah.
Fuck out of here.
So you've got to solve all these problems with limited resources. And you've also got the the threat of being attacked by barbarians in like a year's time, because it's a flash forward at the very beginning. You know that your kingdom's about to be attacked for various political reasons as well, which is quite good because it's a narrative-driven thing, and you've got a family, and there's diplomacy, and there's allies, and there's so it's quite interesting. There's a lot to it, but I'm still just plodding away at it. For those of you who are, if that piques your interest, it's only like 15 quid, and it's I play it like half an hour at a time in the evening when I'm on my Nintendo Switch when I'm chilling out on my bed, essentially. So it's a good little interesting game, that's for sure.
Yeah, the main reason I went on to Spidey was because I wanted something just kind of fun, easy, something I've played before. Then I started just swinging. Then I thought, well, I'm just gonna knock through the story again. But I do want something. Something
fresh
I can play. Yeah, something on my Switch really. And then I saw Disco Elysium is making a TV series. I was like, oh, when's that coming to Switch? And they still don't have a release date.
Yeah.
I really want to play Disco Elysium.
Me too.
So I've been neglecting my Switch. I think that's it. I want to just be able to kick back on the sofa and just recline and play. It's simple, easy, fun.
I like to neglect my Switch though, because I know that if I come back after a few weeks, there's going to be a whole bunch new decent games. Oh, there'll be a bunch of games, and maybe one of them will be decent. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of saving up. It's like going fishing with a big, huge like fishing nets, and then maybe you'll catch like an awesome fish amongst all the like crabs and seaweed and all that shit, because there is a lot of that on the Nintendo store these days. Okay, so let's go to the running order of today's podcast. I kind of promised that it wouldn't be 2 hours this week, but who knows? We'll be talking a little bit about Cyberpunk dropping one of the features that was shown in one of the early trailers. One of the features has been dropped, and we'll talk about that. A little something on Ghost of Tsushima, which we'll be releasing in 2 weeks. We'll be taking Discord questions from the community, and then going to a triggered fanboy comment of the week. After which we'll be looking at some YouTube comments from the comment section on YouTube this week. And then lastly, the bad dad joke of the week to round up the podcast. Firstly, Cyberpunk has shown off a feature in earlier trailers, which it is now removing. Right, Henry?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds super controversial at first. Like, what are they removing? Are they removing multiple playable protagonists? Are they removing a bunch of RPG elements? No, they're removing wall running, which I've got to tell you, maybe I'm being ignorant in this. That means nothing to me in regards to Cyberpunk. It's not something I really zoned in on, and apparently they're taking it out, according to, where is he? Level designer Max Piers saying, the wall running, in an interview with PC Gamer. That's something we removed due to design reasons, but there's still going to be a lot of flexibility in how you move, that's for sure. And the point of the article was more around the idea of it being... It was only a short article, it's not very long. It's an RPG first. It's not a first-person shooter. So you get games like... Titanfall is probably the most famous for implementing stuff like wall running, and that's a really good first-person shooter for that. It's got a really good sense of motion and momentum and movement and all that. But Cyberpunk's not that. It's slightly different. But it did have wall running, and now it doesn't have wall running. And, I mean, that's not a big deal to me. It's just an extra thing. And assuming Mr. Max Piers is being honest and does mean, oh, yeah, there's still going to be flexibility in how you move, I'm sure I can get over it. But I mean, I can't wall run over it, but I can maybe wall crawl over it. Because one thing I do remember in the trailer, it was the one from E3 ages ago, the long one, the like 40-minute one. He sticks into the walls with his arm claws. I think they're called mantis blades, something like that.
Yeah, they are.
And then he like jumps down. That seems like something that's different to wall running. Like I feel like that's a separate thing. So long as I can do that, I guess like I'm still. I mean, this isn't a deal breaker. If a game like Titanfall took out wall running that's specifically built around that mechanic, it would be a different game. Not necessarily a bad one or ruin it, but it would just be a different game. And Cyberpunk, it's just another extra feature in a game that's already full of everything cool you've ever seen in every other game, and they're just like, right, we like that, we like that, we like that, and we're just going to stuff it all together.
It's important that they've come out and clarified this, though, because you can imagine some backlash. People love to backlash on broken promises in games, and when they show something off in a trailer which doesn't end up making it in the final game, you can bet your bottom dollar there'll be some people making videos on YouTube for those clicks, eh? So making sure that they clarify this and set the record straight before going in. And we saw in that gameplay presentation as well from the 48-minute thing, whatever you, however long it was that you referenced earlier, that it says along the top, and all of the footage that they've shown off so far, work in progress, games likely to change, or something like that. Some disclaimer saying that this isn't the final product, things will change.
And that's the narrator made it clear as well. It wasn't just on screen. They said it.
And it's important to highlight that, because games development is a fluid process, and some ideas that they might have to go in the game might not be able to practically fit in the game. And you think of something like Titanfall, right? It's a very focused experience where the levels are small and tight, and you can craft your environment in order to use that ability really well. Whereas Cyberpunk is a huge exploring open world, and there are no ends of walls. So how are you going to wall run in all those walls and test them and make sure that it works, make sure it's worth being in there? And we've talked before about just not having so many elements to your game to overwhelm yourself, but just cut the shit, just scale it down to the core essence of your game, and make sure that everything that at its core is the best. And if you had, maybe, I was just speculating, but maybe the wall running was just superfluous, right? It didn't really add anything.
Yeah. If it's there for... it was built for this one mission where you're running away and a guy's got robo legs and he can jump further, so you then run along a wall to get him. I mean, that's a pretty cool set piece, but it's a huge open world game with a lot of verticality. At least that's the impression reviewers and whatnot previewers have had of it. There's no point in building all of this these mechanics and whatnot if you're not going to use it properly, and it's just going to be a gimmick. So you've either got to use it not at all or on absolutely everything, and considering Cyberpunk is huge, it's probably the right call to not put it in. That said, I mean, wall running's cool. It always looks cool. So it's a shame it's not there, but it's not really a deal breaker for me. But it's interesting you say about the backlash, because I saw this one comment which I thought was it's quite over the top. It's a potential sort of triggered fanboy adjacent type comment, and it's on PC Gamer's tweet sharing the article, which all it says is Cyberpunk 2077's wall running feature has been dropped, and then a link. So this person, Aaron Joseph Warrior. Funny how law enforcement is immortal, no third-person camera, no wall running, no flying cars, a genderless customization options, etc. This game seems like some woke, boring garbage. But hey, let's keep the genital customization and the online mode absolutely no one asked for. Now, this comment, it does raise some very interesting points, because there's been a few things that have been some dropped, it wasn't third-person camera as in third-person perspective, but it was going to be in cutscenes and stuff, so that you could get a look at your character, and that's all but entirely gone now. And some people are saying, well, what's the point in customizing your character if you can't see him? Get that? Not sure where he got law enforcement is immortal. I don't really get that one. I've tried to have a bit of research, but I couldn't see anything to do with that. No flying cars. I think that was it's sort of a thing, but it's not drivable flying cars. You can get in them, but you can't control them. So again, there's a bit of nuance to that one. Genderless customization option. I think this is the linchpin of them saying it's woke, boring garbage. Nothing else has anything to do with it being woke. Wall running isn't the lack of wall running isn't woke. So every game other than Titanfall woke, and what else has wall running? Jedi Fallen Order, Mirror's Edge, all those kind of parkour games. Everything apart from them, they're all woke.
So yeah,
I just thought this comment was so silly.
Titanfall's so regressive, man, and
man,
that old school wall running. You got to make yourself woke by dropping that wall running.
But what about Mario? He can wall jump, but I don't think he can wall run. So is that? I don't know where that quite stands. He's pandering to the liberals. That's what he's doing. But the whole genderless customization thing, in my mind, that's nothing to do with woke pandering. I mean, it certainly could be in another sort of genre, but Cyberpunk is all about that sort of stuff. It's about changing your body.
It's an RPG, right? And it's the same with the genital customization thing. You want to be able to role play this thing, and part of role playing a game is giving you the option to choose your character and make it unique to you, your choices, and that's part of being invested in your character because you create them. That's not being woke. That's game design.
And apparently, some of the previewers have said they've broken down all of the different customization options, but specifically about genitals, there are 2 penis variations, but just one vagina. So you've got to assume that it's sexist. It's disgraceful.
You've got to assume that it's foreskin or no foreskin. Do you know what I mean?
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly
right. There you go. That's my assumption, and that was correct. That's what I would assume.
And then on top of that, there's sliders for size, but for women, it's boob size. You can't adjust your vagina size apparently. So
you don't
that's a deal breaker for you.
Who wants a huge vagina? Let's be honest.
Cancel your pre-orders. Get them in the bin.
And it's an awesome opportunity for all those triggered fanboys, those man children who were on the internet just flaming about everything in the gaming community, to actually live the experience of having a large penis, because obviously the way that they act is conducive to having a very small penis.
Now, just to clarify, we're not calling everyone who complains about everything man-children, but there's plenty of them who do complain about everything. Okay.
Oh, just are man-children. No disclaimers from me. Everyone's a man-child. If you're pointing man-children,
I'm a man-child. If he behaves like a man-child, he's a man-child. That's the be-all and end-all of it. But yeah, like wall running, it'd be pretty cool. It's quite a sci-fi thing, but at the end of the day, it's not a deal-breaker. It's not a huge problem that it's not there. And hopefully, this gives them the opportunity to... Well, at least has done, because supposedly the game's finished. Hopefully this has given them the opportunity to focus on the RPG stuff, which they need to get right. Because it is an RPG first. It's not just a shooter in a cool sci-fi world. It's a heavy RPG, loads of choices, loads of control. So
yeah, I mean the game has been delayed enough as far as I'm concerned.
It's coming November 17th now, I think.
Yeah. So if they need to drop a feature just to get it out and in one piece, then they want to make sure that this game has been hyped for so many years now. They want to make sure that it's right on launch, and this is what all these delays are about: polishing and making sure everything's tight. Dropping a feature like this, which could introduce a whole new host of movement problems, having an open world to wall run on, it's not a big deal for me. Not that's for sure.
And some of the things they've already dropped. Arguments could be made that they could be added in post-launch, like The Witcher 3, because they had a bunch of little quality of life things, as well as more substantial like cosmetic stuff in The Witcher 3. But I doubt wall running would be something they can just add back in, because it would need to be baked into the level design. Stuff like third-person cutscenes or third-person perspectives, I think it's quite possible. I wouldn't be surprised if they did add it, but I'm sort of not expecting them to. Like, I'd love it if they did, but because we saw GTA do the same thing when they upgraded to PS4 from PS3 generation. They added in first person, and maybe that's easier than going to third person. I don't really know, but that seems like something that's a bit more feasible. Same with customizable vehicles. If you could just change your paint job or anything like that, I feel like that's fairly easy to add in. But something as mechanically grounded as wall running, I wouldn't. Once it's gone, it's gone. I'm not expecting that to ever come back.
So that was our nugget on Cyberpunk. We've got a little bit on Ghost of Tsushima. I scoured news articles to see if there's anything worth discussing here. I didn't find anything, because Ghost of Tsushima, for those of you who aren't aware, but living under a rock, it's released on July the 17th. It's Sony's next big exclusive game, developed by Sucker Punch, and they're not doing any interviews by the sounds of it. I can't see anything. Can't see anyone discussing it. But the game is now. It's just like. We didn't mention that people have got hands-on with Cyberpunk. We didn't. Like, where's our invite for playing Cyberpunk? Hey, come on now.
And we'll be fair. And we'll still get cold chills. We'll still get cold chills.
So we didn't get Cyberpunk.
Didn't get access to Cyberpunk. Well, aren't getting. Well, we may do. Who knows? There's still time. We'll butter you up. We will chill if we have to. Didn't get it for The Last of Us, but still, people were mad about that.
Yeah.
Not getting it for Ghost of Tsushima.
Ghost of Tsushima, because people have actually got it now, so that was the point, right?
That's the modern trend now, is posting on Twitter that you have the game. Well, obviously they're allowed to. Sony tells them they can, but it's just the like, main menu screen. For Last of Us, it was the boat, and for Ghost of Tsushima, it's a sword in a field.
PGG.
Sorry, spoilers. God.
Yeah, we should change the heading of Pretty Good Gaming to "Will Shill for Codes." Will Shill for Codes. Yeah. Ghost of Tsushima. If you want to send us an early review copy of that too, we will take it. Although I like having to buy it ourselves, because people know that we're not shilling. Then it's like, well, people know that what we've got to say is genuine, like The Last of Us 2. Like, we'd be genuine.
And when you pick it up, you get it, if you get it on release day or whatever, you have the same experience as everyone else. There's no like glitches that they haven't fixed yet because there's a day one patch or anything like that. And if you're trying to, I don't know, platinum it or scavenge all the collectibles, you can just look up a guide, because pre-launch, if I've ever done a get, like I think I did when I was doing Final Fantasy, because we did get that one early. We didn't do any shilling for that one, but I still got it. So it's just, the shilling doesn't always work. It isn't always needed either. I was fighting a boss, like one of the optional bosses for the platinum run. I'd finished the game already, and I was like, I have no idea how to fucking beat this guy. I need some help. I need someone to put forward their strategy and how they did it, but no one had finished it yet, at least publicly, because the embargo hadn't dropped. So I just had to keep grinding this bastard. Still didn't beat him. In the end, I waited for someone better than me to tell me a good strategy, and it worked. But
cool. I'm talking of getting hands-on early to games. I had my little sneaky preview this week. I can't tell you more than that. But yeah, I had a little sneaky preview of a big upcoming game. You might hear about that in about a week's time. You'll have to wait and see. See what I'm saying? I promise to remain impartial. We won't shill for codes, even though I joked about it earlier. We definitely don't shill for codes.
But free T-shirts. That's a different story.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, back to Ghost of Tsushima after that little side quest that we went on there. The review embargo is actually lifted 3 days before release. It was a week with The Last of Us 2, if I remember correctly. So Tuesday the 14th at 7 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern time, and 3 p.m. British Standard Time. So that's the Tuesday at 3 p.m. for us. We will get the reviews, which will launch. I'm just interested in how well it will review. This is one of those games. One thing you kind of expect from a Sony exclusive game, for the majority part, for the big budget games at least, is a lot of polish and a lot of a lot of time gone into it, and just a lot of attention to detail. But having seen the trailer and commented on the animations of when someone gets headshot by a longbow or whatever it is, he might flang off his feet, but does he have to turn to face the person who shoots him with an arrow? I don't know. There was just a little question mark there. I'm just interested to see. I was looking at the review scores of all the latest PlayStation 4 exclusives. The lowest one was Days Gone with a 69 on Metacritic. Everything else is like 90s or low 80s, which was Death Stranding was like 82 or something like that. But everything else is like 90s. Off the charts good. We took them Spider-Man, Last of Us 2, and God of War. So any predictions on where the score might land for Ghost of Tsushima? I know you haven't played it because you haven't had a bloody review copy, so we've got no bloody idea. So this is complete speculation.
I did ask, but they ignored my pleas. See, it's an interesting one, because our fear that we expressed and got shouted at for, because people seem to disagree, was that it looks like a cool samurai game, but a lot like a lot of other open world games, and we kind of wondered if it's going to do anything more than that. And for a lot of people, a lot of players, that's not going to be a problem. Like I said, if it is just Assassin's Creed like, but in a cool Japanese setting with cool combat, I'm totally on board. I don't need it to do anything particularly innovative on this one. But reviewers love to say the line that we quote all the time: it doesn't bring anything new to the table, which
is an excuse.
And most of them didn't comment on that for The Last of Us 2 or Horizon Zero Dawn or Spider-Man, but they did for games like Days Gone. So many other ones, loads of other ones that they just sort of, I don't know. It feels like I can't think of an excuse for why I don't like it, like mechanically or narratively or whatever. So I'll pin this one on.
This game isn't progressive enough for me. Days Gone. So let's give it a. It's a white male protagonist. Downvote that shit.
Who was that? Was it IGN? I think IGN said that. It's just
probably all of them. They're all thinking that, aren't they?
True. Like, so I reckon it'll be around an 80-ish, maybe like 85, 86, something like that. Because I reckon there's going to be a lot of people praising it, glowing. Big AAA game. They usually get good reviews. It's going to get at least 4 10 out of 10s, especially as it's a brand new IP in a brand new area. I mean, they've Japanese-based games have existed before, but not so much developed by a Western company, Sucker Punch, of that kind of scale and for like hyper-realism and very stylish Akira Kurosawa, what's it? Filter, the Akira Kurosawa mode where it's all black and white.
Black and white, yeah.
So I think that'll get it a lot of praise, but then there'll be a few outlets who will be like, yeah, I mean, it's good, but it doesn't do anything innovative, doesn't do anything new, and it's solid at what it does, but it's no more than that. So I think there'll be a few 10s and a few 7s, and it'll kind of balance out around the 86 is my ballpark at the moment.
That's a pretty good call. There was a new cinematic trailer launched 2 days ago. Doesn't really show much. You are a samurai. It's just
the CG trailer.
Yeah.
No
gameplay.
There's sort of like pseudo gameplay in it where he does some action moves from a gameplay sort of camera angle, but it's not. It's not gameplay.
Yeah. So there you go. There's not much more to say about Ghost of Tsushima because we haven't got much more info, but we are highly anticipated it. It's the next big release on the radar, and it's good that there are games coming out now because it's been like a drought for 2 whole months while we're in Corona lockdown.
Yeah.
But now we're getting games again, so we're all happy. That's why we're all positive on this. We're not talking about any agendas much. We're not talking about any controversies much in this podcast. We're just being positive, right? That's our remit today.
We're gonna try.
Let's talk about games. Anyway,
yeah.
So
let's talk about games, baby. Let's talk about games.
Let's move on from Henry's awesome singing to the community section of the podcast. So if you want to be part of the community, you want to support our content, you head over to patreon.com/prettygoodgaming, or you can join the YouTube channel by clicking the join button right next to the subscribe button. And on Patreon, you can join, I think it's from little as $1. I'm sure it is on the YouTube thing too. You can get early access to this here podcast every single week, up to 2 days of early access, and you have the satisfaction of knowing that you're supporting us bring the content, because without the supporters in the community we would not be able to afford to bring content any longer. You literally help us keep the lights on, so we really appreciate everybody who does take the choice to support us. And on that note, we've had some sign-ups this week. Sip became a patron, a $10 patron. We really appreciate Sip, and I realized that you were a patron in the past and you've come back, so we really appreciate you returning as a patron. So $10, much appreciated. Thanks very much. Next up, Stephen Beaufort Jones is already a patron. However, he's decided to up his pledge from $1 to $2. We appreciate that too. And I did say last week, every single dollar helps. It makes a huge difference. If everybody who watched and supported us was to donate $1, we wouldn't have to ask anybody else because we'd have enough money to continue producing. So, it's not $10 that Sip pledged, but it means a whole lot, Stephen. I just want you to know that every single dollar counts. And on that note, Rajaku also pledged $1 this week, so we really appreciate everybody. Thank you very much, Rajaku, Stephen Beaufort, and Sip, for your pledges. So, the first thing on the agenda today for the community section, as always, or as been recently, is Metalshark's quiz. Now, I'm going to have to pull this up because it's your turn this week, right, Henry?
I think so.
Every single week, Metalshark goes to the effort of doing a 10-question quiz for us, and he's come up with another one this week. So I think did I get 8 or 7 and 2 halves last week, something like that.
Something like that.
So this time it's for you, and the intro for it is a more gentle quiz this week for Henry, as I'm on holiday and didn't want anything too taxing. Maybe an end to the character quizzes for a while, as the pickings are slim. Good luck to all on the last version. I can imagine how much effort it goes to, because he has to know what games we've played too, because he's been refining it, and it's like there must be running out of material now, but I think he's actually getting to the point where we haven't played enough games for him to have questions for. But as always, we really appreciate it, dude. Anyway, let's get into it. First question, Mr. Henry, goes like this. Voice is Northern, although no Latin. Went to my second home with only one of my kin. Name changes and thieving, relationships sullied. My career is now set as mum's word has been studied.
The Voice is Northern is the one that's tripping me up, but I think that's just a matter of perspective. Because as a British person, when I hear Northern, I think of a Northern British accent. But of course, that can apply to every part of the world. So I think, based on everything else, this has to be Nathan Drake, because he knows Latin. He changes his name. His name's not actually, spoiler alert, his name's not actually Nathan Drake. He borrows it. I think you find out in the fourth one, because they run away from their foster home or orphanage or something like that. Thieving, he's a thief. Relationship sullied, that's a pun because his best friend is Sully, and he has a complicated relationship with a lot of his friends. And his mum's world has been studied. That's because in Uncharted 4 you learn that his mum's super important in that game's quest line. So I'm going to say Nathan Drake from Uncharted.
That's absolutely correct. You hit the nail on the head. Voiced by Nolan North. His mother takes his own life when it was... His mother takes his own life.
Nolan North thing, yeah.
Yeah. That was the Voices Northern. His mother takes his own life when he was aged 5, leading to both him and his brother going to a boys' home where he learns Latin. They later steal back their mother's work, leading to a name change and setting the career path of Nathan, involving rocky relationships with peers and a Sully. So that's 1 out of 1.
And he is Northern, because I'm pretty sure they're from Boston, the Drake boys.
There you go. Next up, fly round the screen like a red jellyfish. Scientists and guardsmen are my main dish. Not broken out yet. To experience me, I'm coming to Xbox as well as PC.
Oh, is this... My first thought was that, this sounds like a Metroid, because they're flying around and eating people. But I think this is the gloopy monster from Carrion, which I assume is called Carrion, because I've talked about that's kind of my most anticipated indie game at the moment. So I'm going to go Carrion, the blob monster.
That is correct. A red tentacle monster with a hunger for nearby fleshy humans. Congratulations, Henry. That's 2 out of 2. Let's move on to question 3. Known in Japan as Great Demon King, was drawn as an ox at my inception. Bangles and armbands slid on, not strapped. There's lewd images of me wearing some posh girl's hat.
Oh, this has got to be Bowser from Mario, and the lewd images is what do they call Bowsette? The very lewd NSFW meme that happened like 2 years ago.
Yeah, Rule 34 thing. Bowser from Mario games. Congrats. It was originally meant to be an ox until it was pointed out that they looked more like a turtle. The Bowsette meme enacted Rule 34 early on in its cycle. Congratulations. That's 3 out of 3. You're doing well, Mr. Henry. Keep it up. Let's move on. Question 4. Some call me Survivor. Joined the Army 18. With the state of the world, more apt if a Marine. Joke round as a daredevil. Within my crew I have cred. All I ask from you is, holler if you're dead.
Oh, the holler if you're dead thing rings a massive bell, and I can't think who it is. I can hear it. Oh, the rest of it, it's less vague, but the holler if you're dead thing, I can shit.
You can shit. You can definitely shit.
I mean, like, yeah, I don't mean to brag, but yeah, because there's like an explosion or something, and he says it to his crew. I can't remember his name. I think it's the guy from Spec Ops: The Line. I'm not entirely sure. I think he's.
You are allowed to use the Google to find the name, which I did that twice last week. So if you want to Google to find the name.
Use the Google. You're an old lady now. I'm on the Facebook.
Use the Google. Only Google the name of the game, though. Don't Google the clues. That's the rule.
Yeah. I'm Googling Spec Ops: The Line protagonist name. Martin Walker. That's his name. Okay, that's your I'm going to guess it's him from Spec Ops: The Line.
After all that work, it is wrong. It is Dan Marshall from Binary Domain. In a world flooded due to global warming, Dan joined the Rust crew with the corniest catchphrase ever. There you go.
I mean, Binary Domain, overlooked game. It's not amazing, but it's good fun. Third-person shooter fighting robots. I mean,
well, you're still on 3 out. You're still on 3 or 4, so you're still doing well. So don't be too disheartened.
Part of the reason I put Spec Ops is because I've spoken about it a couple times recently.
Yeah.
So I thought that I tried to play the meta game, but it didn't work.
Didn't work this time. On to question number 5. I'm a pirate leader. We grow our own pot. Got a 4-part short series to develop my plot. Have some memorable quotations. Help define those who are insane. Make you regret stepping foot out that plane.
This sounds like the villain from Far Cry 3. It's Vars. I don't know if he has any more.
That is correct, Henry. Vars Montenegro from Far Cry 3 leads the pirates of Rook Islands.
Yes.
So how many have you had? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've had 5. You've got 4. 4 from 5. Let's move on to question number 6. Once a man, now all in the head. My evacuation failed, leaving 1,300 dead. Did what was necessary if order was to be maintained. With all that has happened, it's myself that I blamed.
I mean, again, this could be the Spec Ops bloke, because it's just sort of like like an army.
It's like
thing
whatever we talk about, whatever games we talk about this week, we can look forward to questions on them next week, right?
Well, we've done Cyberpunk and Ghost of Tsushima, so if it's about Jin or V, then he'll be next week. Once a man, now it's all in the head, because spoilers, in that game, a lot of stuff is a hallucination or a strange interpretation of reality, leaving 1,300 dead. I mean, he makes some bad decisions and a lot of people die. I don't know if it's quite 1,300. Did what's necessary if orders to be maintained. Yeah, because I think that's part of his sinister plan. Fuck it, I'm going to go Martin Walker, Spec Ops: The Line. It's got, I mean...
Martin Walker is wrong. It's John Conrad from Spec Ops: The Line.
So no, that's the right answer, because they're the same person. Spoiler alert, they're the same person.
All right, I'll let you off because it is actually the same guy. So a hallucination.
He hallucinates it. Yeah.
For most of the game, due to taking their life before it begins. Totally spoiled that game for me that I'll never play. Gutted.
Everything you hear from John Conrad is actually in Martin Walker's head, and everything he does is based on his decisions.
Interesting. Might play that one day.
It's really good game.
I actually played half of it and then just got, I don't know.
The gameplay's a bit generic, but the story's really interesting.
Yeah. Next up then, from High Priest to General after the light mass offensive, then using my strategy of making cities submersive. Have a truly cool weapon, the dual chainsaw staff. When wielding it in battle, cuts a tank in half. See what I did there? Half.
It's a villain. He's the guy. He's the one of the villains from Gears 2. Can't remember his name. I think it's either Scourge or Scourge. I'm going to go Scourge.
Scourge is correct from Gears of War series. Congratulations. So you've done 7 questions. You've got 6 correct answers. Have we done 7? Yeah, 7. Let's move on to question number 8. Tall, slender, and twisted. A famous success. Learning about mother caused me some distress. Stab women in the back like an internet troll. Many years on my fringe is now under control.
I have no idea. Tall, slender. I mean, unless this is, I guessed before that in a different one that it was Slender Man, and this is the only one that comes to mind, mainly because it's tall, slender, and twisted. He's very famous.
You're on the wrong track, so I'm going to give you a little clue. You've already mentioned this game in this podcast.
Oh, bollocks. What have I mentioned in this podcast already? Spider-Man? It doesn't sound like anything to do with Spider-Man. I mean, it might be.
One of the... it's probably going to seal the deal now, but I'm going to give you another clue anyway, because I'm kind. It was one that you talked about having early access to.
This is a big giveaway. This is Sephiroth, then.
Absolutely correct.
That's half a point, if that. Surely.
I like to
spoon-fed it.
Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. His fringe was comically wild and ant-like until the remake, a success for Shinra and Soldier. After learning about his mother, Genova, he instead becomes twisted and dangerous. So we'll give you half a point for that. Next up then, question number 9. Member of Task Force 29, the Chief of Security, born in the early 19s and subject to genetic therapy. Shot in the head, my lifespan was augmented. Work is non-stop as terrorists are never contented.
This could be... I've only played it once, but I did really enjoy it for the most part. It wasn't perfect, but it was still pretty good. Is it the guy from Deus Ex? What's his name? Adam
Jensen is correct from Deus Ex. Well done. You've had 9 questions. You've got 7.5 correct. So if you get this next one, you win my last week's score by half a point. If you get it wrong, you lose my last week's score by half a point. So no pressure. And the last question this week. With dark orange fluff and a white colour belly, half moons for ears, unique and curly. Exposed to a thunderstone, which increased my size. When over 10 kilovolts, coming near me is unwise.
Dark orange fluff with a white colour belly. I mean, it seems like a sort of cartoony creature, like a Pokemon type thing. Looking at Crash Bandicoot as well, because that was one of my first thoughts, and I don't think it classes as him. He's not really got a white belly. He was just in my head from yesterday. Half moons for ears. Exposed to a thunderstone, which increased my size. I mean, that sounds to me like the Pokemon Eevee, who transforms into Jolteon once you use the thunderstone to do the evolution. So fuck it, I'm gonna go. I might just go for that.
This is so close.
No other idea.
This is so close, but no cigar. It's Raichu from Pokemon, an evolution of Pikachu. When exposed to a thunderstone, when overcharged with voltage, becomes aggressive. I'm not sure whether to give you half a point for saying a Pokemon or not. It's going to be a bit biased for me to say yes or no on this. Let us know down in the comments whether Henry deserves that half a point for saying Pokemon there.
Half Moon is... I've just Googled a picture of him. I'm not sure
Just to level up the scores. We'll leave the final scores up to you guys this week. Let us know in the comments whether he deserves it.
Yeah.
To get 8, or whether he stays on 7.5.
I think I do.
You know what I prefer, but we'll leave it down to the community.
I think you just want me to win so that you don't have to do it next week, or something.
No. He might be on holiday next week, my Metalshark, by the implications. So we will see. Enjoy your holiday. If you are on holiday, you don't have to do them every week, even though we really, really appreciate them.
You do.
All right, you do. But thanks, Metalshark. As always, dude, you are the MVP, as always. And let's move on now to another question of I've done a lot of reading now, so do you want to take this next one?
Yeah, go on. This first one is from Stephen123. Just want to say thank you to Gaz for mentioning her story a couple of weeks ago. Just bought and finished it on Android and loved it, which leads nicely onto my question. Do you both prefer an up to interpretation ending or a clear and concise ending? Cheers, guys. And
That's
then
a good question.
One of these.
That's a good question. So just a mention about her story first. Yeah, it's one of those stories where it's like it leaves you with a lot of questions. And I'm also intrigued that it's on Android now. If it is, that's an absolute coup. Because for those of you who want to play a game on the bus or whatever, it's really, really good. It definitely lends itself well to an Android game. So check it out for those of you who haven't tried it yet. But yeah, open to interpretation are the ones that I talked about the most, right? Like Last of Us 1 kind of falls in that category.
Yeah, definitely. And 2 to an extent, but I think more people are angry or vocally angry about Part 2's ending. But a lot of people are upset about it, the first one's ending, because it's very ambiguous and you're not sure whether it's the right call. You're not supposed to necessarily agree with what he's done. And that was a theme in the comments of last week's episode. It turned into a bit of a debate about whether Joel did make the right choice, because I think I said that he deserved it. And that's not so much to do with him saving the not saving the world, rather, not letting Ellie die. But he killed a fucking lot of people that he didn't need to kill. That it's more than just that. And a few of them make a good point that if he did let her die and they did manage to get a cure, which isn't confirmed whether they could or couldn't. I think it's suggested in a few notes, apparently, which I missed. There's
a tape saying that they tried it on different people who were supposedly immune and didn't work. So there's a lot of people clinging onto that for justification for why he was right to take it.
I mean, but then there's also, if it did work, then the Fireflies would have this, incredibly powerful thing, and then they would effectively potentially have the means to control the world, because we've seen that the Fireflies are willing to do some pretty bad shit.
Yeah.
So there's reason to believe that, which I think that's part of what makes it really interesting, because then if you're on the flip side of it, it's like, no, he absolutely was bad. He shouldn't have done this. He shouldn't have done that. Then that makes for an interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, say what you want about The Last of Us. I think the fact that it's divided so many people and people can have the conversation, and these types of conversation around the story, around the characters, around the... Say what you want about Last of Us Part 2. People are talking about it. The Last of Us 1 was still talking about it to this day. The fact that that ending where Joel kind of says, yeah, there was no cure or whatever, and then it cuts to Ellie's face and she's like, does she believe him or not? And then that's that ambiguous ending. It's these type of things which just generate buzz around a game after this. So I think a game that is an ending that's open to interpretation is always my preference.
Yeah. What I don't like is people, and this happens with The Last of Us and pretty much any open-ended ending, is people who assign a definitive answer to it and it's like, no, this is the only way. And it's like, well, no, because that's no. There's arguments for it and against it, just like whether Joel made the right choice. A perfect one is Inception's ending, which again, spoilers for that. It's left at least a little bit ambiguous about whether or not he is still dreaming, and it's
that little wobble on the thing. It's like, oh, is it gonna fall? And then it cuts away. It's like, it doesn't matter if it falls, right?
And people still talk about it. Well, no, that wasn't his totem. His actual totem was his wedding ring, and he's not wearing that there because that means he's in reality, so he gets it. And then Michael Caine came out and said a little while ago, well, every scene I'm in is in reality. And Christopher Nolan, the director, came out and said it doesn't matter. No, he explained it doesn't matter. His reason. It doesn't matter to
he's where he wants to be, right?
Yeah, exactly. So and he's content with that, and all that stuff's really interesting. But then people are like, no, it was definitely this, definitely that. It's like, well, no, you're ruining the fun. You're ruining everyone's fun. And again, who knew that the internet would love to ruin people's fun? But then again, maybe I'm ruining their fun by not allowing them to definitively answer an open-ended ending.
Well, that's the point in it, that you leave it ambiguous so that people discuss it and people have opinions. And I'd like exchanging opinions and offering my own and having to think about things, right? Life is boring enough where people spoon feed you their TV shows or whatever.
The answers to the quiz.
Yeah, spoon feed you answers to quizzes and stuff. When you're having to engage your own brain to figure shit out, it's good, man. How can that not be bad? It has to be done right. It has to be done well.
Yeah.
It can't be done badly.
Open-ended endings can be done really poorly if they just deliberately withhold information for the sake of it, which I think can happen a lot. It's like, we've not answered this question because we're sequel baiting. We're definitely leaving it for the sequel. It's not like a good cliffhanger. It's just, you should know this, but we're not going to tell it to you.
Exactly.
So
thanks for the question, Stephen. That was a good one, and hopefully you enjoyed her story. Next question is by proxy, Rob Lowe's Game of the Ages question. I'm up to 2017 now. This is a question where every single week we ask what was our favourite game from a certain year. We started at the year of our birth, so we've been going plus 1 year every single week, apart from one where we forgot. But this year for me, it's 2017. So there was a lot of games I played in 2017. This is probably the first time that I've got lots to choose from. Obviously, because of this channel, I started playing more games. So notable mentions, right? You're probably not going to like my winner, but suck it.
I reckon I would know what it's going to be based on the way you talk about it, Ivy.
Yeah, Little Nightmares was a decent one. I like that. Edith Finch was worth a mention because of how it did things. 2 kind of indie games there. PUBG was a big one for me. I played lots of time in that game, 160 odd hours, and then I dropped it, and it's like it just needs to get better. But in terms of bringing about the battlegrounds, PUBG, to the
Battle Royale.
Battle Royale.
That's the word you're looking for.
That is the word I'm looking for. Thank you, Henry. Thanks for the spoon feeding there. In terms of the popularity of that genre, it's done wonders, and I do like the genre, so that's good. Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice, comes in 3rd place. 2nd place is Horizon Zero Dawn. And first place, my winner of Game of 2017 is the indie game, which we never play apparently, or never talk about, Golf Story on the Nintendo Switch. My favourite game to ever come on the Nintendo Switch. Hell of a sense of humour on that game. RPG based around a sport, which is actually pretty good. Pretty good gameplay, pretty good story, pretty good just the whole environment, it's a pixel art game, and I loved it. Get over it. I'm well looking forward to Sports Story, which is coming out soon in the summer, apparently. And when that drops, I'm going to lose my shit. But thinking about all these games that I've played and how to deduce which one I like the most, it is the sequel to Golf Story that I will be playing first if all of them dropped right now. Horizon Zero Dawn sequel, I want to play it. I wouldn't play it over Sports Story, however. I just love that game. It's got a special place in my heart. There you go.
That's the one. It comes as no surprise to me. You talk very highly of
Golf Story.
It's
the shit.
Well, there you go. I had to move on to films instead of games long ago because I'm significantly younger than this old geezer. So I'm on 2007 now, and I thought, over first glance, I was like, there's not really much that sticks out. But then there's a few that I quite enjoyed, and I'm going to end up deciding what my favourite one is, probably in the moment, because I'm still not sure. Sunshine, which loads of people don't like. Sunshine is excellent. It's a weird sci-fi horror film which goes really, really sort of stupid at the end, but I still think it's a great movie. 28 Weeks Later, not as good as the first one. Transformers, the first live-action Michael Bay Transformers film, is actually a really good action film. All the others, progressively worse, get in the bin, but I legitimately enjoy the first one. Sweeney Todd, don't like musicals, love Sweeney Todd. Hot Fuzz, that's a solid contender for the winner. Hot Fuzz is excellent, but I think I prefer Shaun of the Dead. Superbad, which could take it because it's one of the funniest films I've ever seen. Simpsons Movie, which is much better than it should be. No Country for Old Men, which is pretty good but overrated. And Stardust, which I put on there because I remember it being really like shit, but I still enjoyed it, and it's like really cheesy fairy tale fantasy movie, but I still enjoyed it. Well, I think Superbad's going to take it. I think Superbad is so funny, and it was right there at the right time for me at that age to just, because it's the kind of film where you're at the same age as the characters and their horrific lived experience is rather similar to your own. Like, you're not one of the cool kids, but you're not a complete fucking loser. It's like The Inbetweeners. For our American fans, if you've watched what you think is The Inbetweeners, the American one, you don't know what The Inbetweeners is. That show's fucking garbage, and I hated it. I watched about 10 minutes of one episode and I wanted to kill myself. watch the real In-Betweeners, the UK one, because it's really low budget, just being an in-betweener. You're not cool, you're not a massive loser, you're just there in that little sweet spot and trying to get by in high school and having everything be really shit all the time and be really funny.
There you go.
So yeah, that's it.
Winner is super bad. So thanks, Rob Lowe, for question. Let's move on to Cloney's first of two, and it's quite a lengthy one. I think you're up.
Oh, for God's sake, I really didn't want to have to read this one. I haven't pre-read these, so if I
it's just
stumble,
a lot of text.
Please forgive. Yeah,
nothing wrong with the question.
Solid wall. Oh no, I don't even know what the question is yet. I normally highlight them, but I haven't.
It's a decent question.
Okay. So Cloney says, I'm finally binge watching the podcast I've missed due to severe depression and not sleeping, like at all. And you said something in podcast 66 talking about Thrones of Britannia that got me thinking, Gaz. I'm sorry you've been having a hard time, but I'm glad that we can help with podcasting, at least in some sort of little way.
That'll put you to sleep, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's fucking right.
Binge watching the podcast.
As a German, whenever I play historic strategy and Imperium management games like Civilization or Total War, or even Hearts of Iron / Crusader Kings, the last one I desperately need to get into and spend a fortune on that game, I enjoy choosing and impersonating the great leaders of history despite their end or final reputation. No, see, I'm totally on board with that. Be it Napoleon Bonaparte, Bismarck, or George Washington, some have their reputation as heroes, some more of great conquerors and smart leaders, despite being a bit mad or losing their final war to a liberation army that created positive change in Europe. However, never once did it feel weird to subjugate the Germans, or even conquer Bismarck in Civ when he was around the 1900s / 2000s. I was raised with the knowledge of the horrors of World War II, and hence I don't identify with my heritage as a German a lot. Despite great accomplishments of the past, we revolutionized warfare in the 1200s. We had great artists and amazing scientists. Konrad Zuse, I'm going to say Zuse. Mm-hmm. The father of computers was a German IARC. So you mentioning you feel weird to attack the country you learned was oppressed a lot that you come from made me think. Do you think that not identifying with your heritage is a specifically German thing? Mm-hmm. Henry, do you identify with Queen Victoria or Winston Churchill when thinking about creating the emperor-type character in a game about world domination? Is it the heritage of conquering and suppressing nations of the past couple centuries to rather be ashamed about their great leaders, and just to clarify, I'm not calling Adolf Hitler a great leader, just someone who is recognized by history, or a specifically German thing to rather not talk about famous past famous war tacticians?
Well, we all know that Fawlty Towers thing. Don't talk about the war, right? Just don't.
Haven't they dropped that episode now?
No, they think they reinstated it.
Oh, thank goodness.
In Germany. I think it was banned in Germany because it was like, don't talk about the war, but they brought it back now. Amazing.
Well, I don't remember if this is true, but I think it was a sort of urban legend when I was a kid that when Wolfenstein was released in Germany, they had to remove all of the swastikas. They had to remove all of them in a game about killing Nazis. Yeah. So it's a bit of a tricky one. It's one of the first examples I remember hearing the expression, "It's political correctness gone mad," and yeah, that is political correctness gone mad. So, do we identify with
Winston Churchill or Queen Victoria, Henry?
Yeah.
Are you quintessentially English?
I don't understand stuff like. I mean, this is. I imagine a lot of people would disagree with this. I don't understand like crazy patriotism or nationalism or anything like that, because I had no choice in the matter.
Yeah,
I didn't choose to be born in England. Like, we take the piss out of each other. I oppress him, and he's just a filthy Welsh sheep shagger. But I mean,
it's not true, by the way.
I mean, that's what he would say. That's exactly what a filthy Welsh sheep shagger would say. I don't really identify with, the history of the country being my immediate history. I mean, that's
because there's nothing to love about England. There's nothing to love about England. I mean, if you were from a country like Wales, and you had that cultural history where you've got bars, you've got music, you've got all this things to love, the countryside itself, and all this rich, deep history and culture from Wales. If you were from a country like that, you would understand the patriotism, right? And you would understand that you were better than mostly everybody else, especially the English, and having been subjugated by the English, who are like literally inferior, scientifically inferior to you. I mean, you need to have two middle names to even try and make yourself feel important. I mean, it's all ridiculous in my eyes. So that's why you don't understand patriotism, Henry.
This is
It's
the big
obvious.
I have to put up with on this channel. He accuses me of being the oppressor and the subjugator of
You deserve
generations
it. You
of
deserve it.
people.
That's all I'm saying.
But
I'm making up for my ancestors.
That I had nothing to do. No, but yeah, I don't.
White guilt. I'm guilting you.
Queen Victoria, she was the longest reigning monarch for a long time until Queen Elizabeth II, our current queen. I think she's outdone her now. But like, I mean, they're cool people to read about in history, but that to me, that's just like any other person. Like Winston Churchill, he's getting a lot of flack at the moment for being a rampant racist, and I'm pretty certain he was, but that doesn't undermine any of the significant achievements he did make, especially World War II and whatnot. So yeah, they're just people in history to me. Because I have no choice to be English. It is what I am, and Gaz's horrendous insults and slights against my people. I mean, I don't care.
You don't care.
I didn't do it.
You don't care. Whereas every single tribe, the sheepshagger tribes, they cut me deep, Henry. You know what I mean?
I've seen things, viewers and listeners. You can't imagine what I've seen going on in the office. I walk in, pants down by his ankles.
Lies. This is lies.
And a belt wrapped around his own neck.
Let's stick to the topic. I feel sorry for Cloney that I don't know why. Why you don't identify with your German heritage a lot, and it's a shame really, because I don't know, good thing, a bad thing, it's a judgment call, up to you, but I think that I don't know whether Adolf Hitler kind of tarnished that for you. I mean, it's not right that you feel shame for someone else's bad things. You should probably feel proud of Germany, and I hope that I really hope that this isn't a thing throughout the whole of Germany, that people don't feel positive towards their heritage. Maybe it is. It's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you shouldn't feel negative about it. And when you say I'm not calling Adolf Hitler a great leader, I would absolutely call him a great leader in terms of fixing the German economy post World War One. Yeah, and all that.
To begin with, until like he lost the plot. Until he lost the plot towards the end. Yeah. And lost his shit and went paranoid and shit.
Yeah. I mean, he did fix. That's the thing. A lot of people say, how did they just fall for it? How could they be so stupid? But it's because he told them what they wanted to hear, and he actually did it. Like he did. The German economy was fucked at the beginning. Shortly after the end of the First World War, it was fucked, and he helped fix it with economic solutions. But yeah, I think it's quite fun being. It's the same as a video game where you get to play as the bad guy. If playing a video game where you got to play the role of the Nazis in like a Civ or a Total War situation,
or playing Abby in The Last of Us 2, for example. I mean,
exactly. It's a different perspective, and it could be interesting. And also, if you don't like that, if you don't like that you can play as the Nazis, then play as the other side, set the difficulty really low, and just annihilate them. Just get your own back if you're really bothered about it.
Yeah. So thanks for the question, Cloney. I'm not. I'm sure it's the. I'm sure some people. There are a lot of people who don't feel connected to their country, but there's a special thing. I don't know whether it's because of my education going through Welsh education system that you're taught a lot about Welsh history, about how we were put down by the English and things like that, and it riles and it stirs something up in you. So I don't know if it's a byproduct of that, but.
Oh yeah, the English education system conveniently avoids pretty much every horrific colonialist, imperialist atrocity that the Empire did. But the thing is, I don't identify with those negative sides just as much as I don't identify with the positive sides, because it's nothing to do with me. And obviously winning the Second World War and beating the Axis that helps my current situation. But if we had lost, there's nothing I can do about that. I would probably be speaking German, and the world would be very, very, very different. But I mean, I have no choice in that. I have no means to input that, so I can't be proud of it. At least that's my. I know a lot of people vehemently disagree. But anywho,
thanks for that question, Cloney. We've got another one from you here, which I will take, and this is another interesting one too. How did the arcade shape your youth? We don't have those in Germany, or they are exceedingly rare. I first saw one when I was 15, and we had time to kill waiting for the Dover-Calais ferry, I think, bringing our school bus back to the mainland, where we were 2 weeks in Britain, Plymouth, where I was staying, I think, and where we were allowed to spend the rest of our foreign currency. We tried some of the machines there, but the most fun I had with a dude I didn't really like who played this duck and fire game with me. It had a foot pedal and a gun. You shoot at a screen and you press the pedal for cover. It was the best shooter I ever played, hands down. Never had so much fun with a mouse and keyboard. We even bonded over that thing. Is this another question? Yeah. Have we had more of those in my country? I would have spent my entire allowance there. I would be in one of those arcade nerds. I would be one of those arcade nerds you see in the movies today. How did having those things in your town shape your youth? Did you bond over spending quarters with one of your enemies because he was good at shooting too? Or did you fight over the Dance Dance Revolution thing with a bratty 10-year-old girl? Did you celebrate birthdays there? Maybe became a popular kid because your mum had coins for everyone invited? And additionally, did it shape your view of the gaming world? So my experience with arcades is I grew up in Rhyl, which is a seaside resort, and you walk down the promenade and down the seafront in Rhyl, and on your left-hand side, or whichever side, there's arcades all the way down. I mean, they've closed a lot of them now, but they were just arcades for maybe a mile, 2 miles of arcades, right? That's where I lived, and I lived right near the that end of Rhyl for a good while. And we used to spend some time in the arcades next to the fair. We used to go in there. However, we didn't always have money, and I can't believe I'm going to admit this on the podcast. But one day, me and my brother, who didn't have anything to do, we were knocking around. My mum had just finished night shifts because she's working as a nurse, and single parent family. So we were just like, what do we do? We'll go to the arcades, but we haven't got any money. Mum's got money in her purse. So I did have an older brother. He was the one responsible because I'm only the younger brother. I don't make the decisions in that situation. So it was him that instigated it. We stole £20 off my mum. We went to the arcades and we spent all day blowing it on the arcades, and we had a cracking good time until my mum found out and absolutely busted our balls. I can't imagine the punishments that we had after stealing money from my mum. Another memory is when my brother literally found like 40 quid. He went to a football game, watched a football match or something. He found 40 quid on the floor, and we were like, should we give it back? No, we'll go to the arcades and spend it. Yeah. We didn't usually have a lot of money for the arcades, but when we did, we just absolutely smashed it. And the games that I remember, like the Double Dragon ones, the ones where you play Mortal Kombat, those type of games you play with friends. Afterburner, the Star Wars one, where the very first early Star Wars one, and then the shooting games were really cool, like Mad Dog McCraw or something it was called, where you shoot where you're heading. Still remember that to this day. It was maybe. In my formative years, it definitely had an impact. I'm not sure. I don't go to arcades anymore. There's far too many gambling machines there now, and they've taken away a lot of the decent games. But every so often, when you're in Centre Parks or something, you see like next to the bowling alley, there's like, there's some arcades. Let's go see what games are in there. And 9 times out of 10, it's a mobile game rip-off or something, Frogger or something like that they've just adapted into a. It's like, these aren't classic games. These are shite. Let's play some air hockey.
Yeah, I mean, I always really desperately wanted to go to arcades as a kid, but it so rarely happened because there weren't. I just lived in like the suburbs. There weren't any nearby. It's definitely. I mean, I was a bit late, like being born to the arcade scene, because that arcade started dying when consoles started being invented, really, because then people were like, well, I can just stay at home instead of going out. It's like Netflix killing the cinema in a similar sort of sense. So we didn't go often, but when we did, that was my dream. This is my, or at least I told myself, this is like my nirvana. This is my mecca. This is where I belong. But we went so rarely, so I don't have that many memories of it. But the prevailing one is when we'd go on holiday, and I hated these holidays apart from the arcades. Going to places like Butlins type, like caravan places where they'd have like an event center where they do fuck all that's any good. And I particularly hated it because I was the youngest out of everyone, and I was very shy as a kid. Like I didn't really make friends with people who weren't already in my immediate kind of vicinity. So I never really enjoyed them that much, apart from the arcades. And we went in the evening. The adults would be in like the main room where they could be, some
getting drunk, or
terrible live music act. Yeah, getting pissed. I remember that was the first time I ever tasted rum, because one of the guys, I think he was like 16 and I was probably, I don't know, maybe 10, something like that, maybe 9.
Drinking rum at 10.
Me,
wow.
Try this. Oh, it's just Coke? Yeah, it's just Coke. And it wasn't. I was like, well, that's horrific, being a 10-year-old. Rum's like one of my primary drinks now.
Yeah, of course it is.
But then, going to the arcades, then everyone else would sort of, even the other kids my age, they sort of peter off and go to like dance. And I've hated dancing all my life. I still hate it. Don't do it. It's not my life. So I'd mill about in the arcades playing primarily games like House of the Dead, like light gun shooters. I always wanted, and I still kind of do, even though I really don't like this kind of game, I've always wanted a Marvel vs. Capcom 2 arcade cabinet, because there was a comic book store in my hometown, really overpriced comic book store, because it was badly run business. The store was too big. They tried to make all their money on collectibles, but it was all too expensive for what it was, so it didn't last very long. But they had an arcade machine there, and I played with my mates every now and then, and we were all shit. No one could do any combos. I was like, right, I like Spider-Man. Spider-Man's cool. Let's see what happens. And then we're just like, I guess you won. Great. But beyond that, my prevailing arcade memories are being, this is my only solace in this place. I'm playing games like House of the Dead over and over and over again. But you're very much right that this was right at the time where game machines were leaving and gambling machines were coming in. So the game machines were pretty few and far between. There wasn't a single arcade cabinet like Marvel vs. Capcom. No fighting games like that. It was all a few light gun shooters, a few I can't even really remember, but nothing, no mainstays, no, what's the Dragon one? Dragon Quest or something? It's like a 2D animated art style where you've got to, it's meant to be really hard. I always wanted to play that one, but I never
what type of game was it?
It was like sort of a choose your own adventure, but it's meant to be really hard, and there's bits where you're fighting a dragon, you're a knight,
right,
and you're in a treasure room full of gold pieces, and you've got dash sides. I can't really remember because I never actually played it, but yeah, I always wanted to go to the arcades, but it was not a major part of my life, despite how much I wanted it to be.
Well,
unfortunately,
there you go. So that's the lot for the question. Thanks, by the way, to everybody who's left a question. If you do want to leave a question, head to the Patreon Discord, or just to the Discord if you're a Patreon, and leave a question for next week's podcast. And by the way, for those of you who are not supporters, Patreon supporters, or YouTube membership supporters, you can access the Discord and join in with the public channels that are on there now. Link to that in the description of this video if you want to join the community, albeit in a limited capacity. And that's it for this week in terms of the questions and comments. Let's move on to the Triggered Fanboy comment of the week. Now, I'm scraping the barrel here. This isn't technically a fanboy. It's just just somebody who's triggered. And it's the best one I could find because we don't have a lot. Surprisingly, the Last of Us 2 podcast last week, we did pretty well because there was a lot of discussion in that video. We didn't trigger enough people. We did well, and we didn't trigger people. So yeah.
That's the thing. It was always going to be a controversial video because it's about The Last of Us 2. But generally, a lot of people, even people who disagree, there's not much toxicity, which I'm really happy about, because I think a lot of the most toxic people, they've got it out of their system and now they've just moved on to the next thing to scream about.
Hopefully they've unsubscribed and moved on with their lives. But this one, I think, was scraping the barrel, because I'm not sure whether he calls us a name, but I think he does it at the end of a comment, and just to try and maybe make it to the Triggered Fanboy comment. So if that was your aim by calling this what you called us, Mr. Clockwork Man, then congratulations, you've duped me and you've won the Triggered Fanboy comment of the week. But he says, I have to correct you. Actually. It starts very well. I have to correct you on The Last of Us 2 not having an agenda. Fuckman said it does. He's fond of Snarkeesian and her teachings. So you may not mind it has an agenda, but it's a fact that it does. Idiots.
I mean, the first one does, and that's like I agree, Neil Druckmann. There's no need to resort to silly name calling here, although we are calling you a Triggered Fanboy of the Week. So
that's not name calling. That's just pointing out the obvious, right?
I mean, you are triggered and a fanboy. Druckmann, he said publicly, it's not a secret that he has an agenda to make a character like Ellie non-sexualized and all this, that, and the other. No, I mean, it certainly may be the case, but nothing like that's been said yet. The narrative that Anita Sarkeesian was involved in Part 2 is largely incorrect. Like, she wasn't a consultant. That seems to be something. Well, I mean, they could be lying. I'm not saying 100% for sure, but they could be lying. But it seems to be that the developers have said, no, she wasn't involved. Druckmann used her as a inspiration for some of her ideas in the first game. It may be the case in the second one, but like, I don't know. There's just so much false stuff about this game.
Yeah, people just use a snippet of information, like they embellish it, and then they use that to justify their hatred for a game, like this sort of Snarkeesian thing. I don't know too much. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm going to put it in those terms. I feel like people just want to hate on it, so they use any nugget of information. It's like, oh yeah, it's an agenda-pushing bullshit piece of thing. It's like, oh come on. Surely, if you play the game, you've got better criticisms of the game than just it's pushing agendas. It's like,
that's the thing. Like, sometimes there are legitimate criticisms around that sort of thing. Like, this character's badly written and they are only there to do blah blah blah. And then people who scream agenda the loudest, I'm like, no, you're taking away all the attention because of all your noise.
Yeah, that's exactly the point, right? There's so much noise around this, and that for me, if it's got an agenda, that's not a negative or a positive thing. That's just the way of the world, right? The game itself has to be played in order to determine whether it's a good or bad game. I'm not concerned with anybody's agenda. I don't really care whether it's agenda pushing or not. It doesn't bother me. I've got no skin in the game. I'm very neutral, and I've said that time and time and again. I don't care for anyone's agenda, positive or negative. So it literally goes over my head, and I'm probably pleased that it does that. So I'm going to critique the game and how the game plays, how much fun I have playing the game. That's how I'm going to approach these things, as always. But shall we move on to some more comments? Maybe some more positive ones.
Well, I don't have a positive one, but I can go looking for one. But this one, it made me laugh. So laughter's positive, and it's not that mean. It's just a little bit. And again, it's last week's podcast. Wayne Caitlin timestamp, which was quite near the end of the video anyway. So we'd been recording for an hour and 50 minutes and 50 seconds according to the timestamp. Henry's pit stains, a vomiting face. And the thing is, I was like, oh no, that's something, like it's always embarrassing. No one wants to have sweaty arm stains. And I jumped to that bit and I was like, I'm specifically talking about being really hot in that moment. I think I take my hat off and I fan myself. I'm specifically saying I'm really hot. And I mean, they're like that big. They're not like really, really terrible. And someone has even commented, he looks uncomfortable. I'm guessing he's cooking in there. I'm uncomfortable now. It's really hot in here. It's not that hot outside today, but there's this huge light. My main room light's not even on today, but it just gets really hot. It's a heat sink. My computer is on fire. That hurt a little bit. But that's why I'm wearing black today. So hopefully you can't see anything. Although it does.
No, we can't see anything.
Moist.
Why don't you sniff your armpit? Tell us how it smells, Henry. No, I'm joking.
Well.
So that was funny. I've got another good positive. I've got one to balance you out, right? So Eugene Stain says, normally I will side with Gaz and not like Man in Hat's way of thinking. But today, Man in Hat, Henry in brackets, oh, thanks for giving him his actual name, felt more balanced. Thank you for a fairly balanced review. Keep up the great work. This is like a backhanded compliment. Normally, I don't like you, but I do. This time, it felt more balanced. Thank you for a fairly balanced review. Keep up the great work. It's like, you could try harder to be a little bit more positive if you're going to be positive, surely. There you go. You got something back.
I had one that was on a sort of similar note. See if I can find it. It was... I can't seem to find it. Maybe it's been deleted or I can't see it. It was something like... is this the one? No, that's not it. It was something like how in the past I've not conveyed my opinion correctly and it seems to have come off... like off topic, and there's been too many tangents or whatever, and I absolutely agree with that. I really don't think I'm very good at articulating myself when I'm speaking because I end up rambling, but I much prefer writing it. But the point of his comment was that, oh no, I think he's got much better at that, and it's good to see you like improving, and I think perfecting your craft, I think, is the direct quote. I can't remember who said it. I don't know the exact quote, but I liked that one, so thank you, because I totally agree. I really don't see. I'm already rambling and still going on about the same point.
I've got the quote. I'll read it out. I've got it here. It's Perry Banks. Henry, I used to find you quite frustrating to listen to because your arguments weren't well explained, and your points seemed quite off topic at times. However, now I find you really engaging to listen to. Your points are well made, even if I don't agree. Hopefully you don't take this the wrong way, but thanks for perfecting your craft. It is interesting. It's important to point out that when Henry began on the channel, this is his first experience talking or presenting and being made to think of stuff on the spot. And yeah, it's been a year and a half. Hopefully, it should have improved in that time. Coming up to 2 years now, Henry.
One would hope.
Sorry, what?
As I said, one would hope.
Yeah, one would hope. But yeah, he has. Perry Banks has noticed, and yeah, it is about perfecting your craft. I remember back in the very early days, we used to do the daily news standing up side by side, and yeah, it was the energy that you had back then. It was like very kind of tense, and it was really, you could tell it was difficult for you, and you were struggling. But now, Henry, you've adapted, you've learned, and you can actually make sense. So
I certainly wouldn't go that far.
One would hope that in almost 2 years of being on the show, that you at least once in a while make a good point. So
I mean,
yeah,
that's all anyone can hope for.
I've got another positive one here. Spontaneous Weasel, great video. This is on the podcast again. You guys basically just articulated all the feelings I had with why I didn't love playing through part 2. It's a shame, as it's still a fun game to play. Good. I'm glad that we connected with you on that. That's the point. That's what we always try and do on this channel. Is try and connect with you from a gamer's perspective. We're not here giving you the journaling games news. This is what publishers want you to think, what publishers want you to say. We're gamers at heart, right? From the very beginning. That's how we started this channel. And that's how we're operating. Is that we'll tell you how we feel about some shit, even if it's bad, towards games and series that we really like. And I'm glad. This is why, right? Because we connect with the players themselves, with you guys who watch our content. So I'm glad that hopefully he wasn't the only one, but we did connect with the viewers in the last podcast, and I think that was kind of telling, because we didn't get a lot of Triggered Fanboy comments last week. We were kind of down in the middle, and the game is so divisive. Some people really love the game, 10 out of 10, best game ever. Some people really hate it. Oh, shit, what have they done? This and that. Yeah. We're kind of in the middle. We like it for some reasons. We dislike it for some reasons, and I kind of feel like we represented the whole spectrum of players in that podcast. The way we talked about the game, I think we did a good job.
I think because The Last of Us is a very story-based series, that a lot, and because the first game's gameplay was fairly weak on the whole, a lot of people have just overlooked how much better the gameplay is in part 2. And it's a really decent stealth game. It's not very complicated in any sort of in stealth, and it's not that hard, or doesn't force you to do a bunch of like complicated things, but it's still really well grounded, realistic, and if you like that sort of thing, then it's really well done. If you don't, then don't play it. Go play something different. But yeah, I think a lot of people just saying it's trash 0 out of 10 solely because of the story. And yeah, it is a story-based game, but the gameplay in this one is really good. At least I really liked it, and I don't think it's fair. It's not a 0 out of 10. It's not a 10 out of 10. We talked about that last time, but I think even if you absolutely hate the story, if you hate it with all your guts, there's still some good stuff about it. Yeah. Even if it's just the graphics. The graphics are undisputedly incredible, so that alone should mean it's not 0 out of 10. Surely.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to dwell on that sort of crap.
Yeah, there's one other one that I've just spotted now, and maybe this is a contender for Triggered Fanboy Comment of the Week. It's quite good. It is quite good. I probably should have used this one. But it's funny. Totoro-san comments on last week's podcast. Soy boys trying hard to come off as critical thinkers. Pathetic. Listen to developers' interviews and their agenda. It's not a secret. Yeah, so that was a spewage of bullshit. Soy boys.
Soy boys, this in the fucking...
My only gripe is that he calls soy boys. I would challenge you, Totoro-san. The gloves are off now. I've thrown down the gauntlet, right? I would challenge you to a steak eating contest, and we'll see who the soy boy is, right? Like, let's do it, man. I would eat more steaks than you. I'm telling you. Line them up, man. I'll smash those steaks, and you'll still be drinking your mother's tit milk. I tell you.
Soy boy is in the same world as words like soy boy, cuck, beta, SJW. Simp is the new one, and I hate that word because it's just overused. People just throw it out. You say a nice thing to anyone, oh, fucking simp. You say you don't like something, oh, you fucking soy boy. Oh, just shut the fuck up with that shit.
Yeah, it just proves that you haven't got a good point if you have to resort to name calling, essentially. Listen to other views and their agenda. Would you like to enlighten us by explaining why in depth? No, just call us a soy boy because that makes your point, right? That proves that you're right, you idiot. Anyway, so that was that one. Enough negativity now. Have you got any others?
I'm seeing if I can find
I've got
some nicer ones.
While you look, then I've got one. So I think this was a previous podcast, so I'm going to read it anyway because it's on this screenshot here. Joel Bregadan comments when we talked about TV shows we were watching in podcast number 66. Mad Men, The Last Kingdom. Really, mate? Really? That was it. You don't like them shows? Why don't you explain yourself?
Well, that's the thing.
Mad Men's awesome.
It seems to... Yeah, like they're largely accepted to be
Last Kingdom's all right.
Hits.
Come on, like what's better than Mad Men? Tell me a show that's better than Mad Men, or maybe he thinks that I'm comparing Mad Men with The Last Kingdom because it's a different league. That's the only thing I can think of. Maybe you've got a point there. Last Kingdom isn't as good as Mad Men. If you love Mad Men, maybe you get triggered by that. Maybe. Why don't you explain yourself, Joel Bregadan? Why you're triggered by me liking Mad Men and The Last Kingdom? I really, mate, really, I really want you to explain. And that kind of expends all my comments.
I've no more words to add on to that.
Do you have any more comments?
No, there was one that it was something about yesterday's video, Wednesday, about long games, because the middle story was about the PlayStation exec saying the current business model for AAA games isn't sustainable because they take too long to make and too much money, and they don't make enough money because the price of games is still the same type thing. And someone said a game with great gameplay is never too long, and I can't find the comment. I'll see if I can find in page, see where it is. There we go. Jedi Mind Trick. A game with great gameplay can never be too long. And I'm like, yeah, true. You're right.
Absolutely true.
But so many games don't have great gameplay that are too long because they're repetitive and boring. I just thought, on the surface, it's a really great point. Great game with great gameplay can never be too long. But then Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it's got fine gameplay. It's not terrible, but it's not amazing. And that's why I still haven't gone back to it since I last spoke to you about it on the podcast. I tried, but it's just not there.
I think this was all kicked off by Jason Schreier this week, where he just literally tweeted, "Games are too long," and that totally triggered.
Who was
Troy Baker?
Troy Baker.
He was totally triggered by it, and he posted a quote from
Roosevelt.
And everyone's dumping on him for being really pretentious now.
Yeah.
But you can imagine...
I like the guy, but that fucking response is so stupid.
Weird. It's a bit weird. No need for him to get all defensive about it. But I think Jason Schreier, being a games journalist as he is, and kind of position, we need to get through games, right? So a game being 20, 25, 30 hours long, then you want to play... You've got more games to play or whatever. Yeah, maybe they're too long for you. Doesn't mean that they should scale back games with it's just a subjective thing.
Yeah,
that was funny.
That's the thing. Like, a lot of people just read that as him saying that no game should ever be long again. They should all be short experiences.
Yeah, he's just being facetious.
He likes being provocative on Twitter because people get angry and then he can tweet back at them and then block them.
Yeah. There you go. So are we done with comments? Let's move on to the very last segment of this week. This is the bad dad joke of the week. Why did the grape go out with the plum?
I don't know. Why did the grape go out with the plum?
Because it couldn't get a date.
Ha, ha, ha.
I'm sure we can come up with...
Yeah, that really wasn't it, man.
The convenience of having a tin of bad dad jokes is really cool. However, I do wish that they'd come up with some better jokes, but maybe I'll scour the Discord because there's a bad dad jokes channel on there. Maybe I'll come up with a better one next week. But there you have it. That is the podcast. Thanks, Henry, for participating, and thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoy the content, please, a bit of a reminder, go to patreon.com/prettygoodgaming and please consider supporting us. For as little as $1 a month, you can get early access. $1 a month you can get to support us. That's not a lot. You spend more than that on coffee, on Starbucks. You go to Starbucks and you buy shitty coffee and you spend more on that than you do on us. And we entertain you for free every single week. Please consider supporting us on patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. Also now on YouTube memberships. We really appreciate everybody who supports us because if you went away, we'd have to go away. We couldn't afford it otherwise. So thanks very much. And with that, we will end podcast number 69. And remember, party on, be excellent to each other. Bye for now.
69.